There's this comforting lie that I think we all sort of buy into, whether we realize it or not.
A lie? What do you mean?
It's this idea that life is, well, it's basically a magical conveyor
A
belt.
conveyor belt.
Yeah.
Okay.
You get on it when you're born, and as long as you just, stand there,
Hmm.
as long as you keep having birthdays and don't fall off, you will inevitably arrive at wisdom.
Right, the automatic upgrade theory of human development.
Exactly. We just assume that getting older automatically means getting wiser.
Like your operating system just updates itself while you sleep.
And on the flip side of that, we assume that being young automatically means being innocent. It's this standard roadmap we all have in our heads.
The higher the number, the more grown up you are. The lower the number, the more pure.
But then you look around at the actual world, and that map, it doesn't match the territory at all.
Not even close.
We've all seen it, right?
Eh.
You see the 40-year-old having a complete meltdown at a barista because their latte has too much foam.
Oh, absolutely. Acting like a toddler who dropped their ice cream.
And then you meet a teenager who's navigating some incredibly complex family trauma with the level of grace that, honestly, puts most adults to shame.
And that disconnect is exactly what we're digging into today. Because when the map doesn't match the territory, you get lost.
You really do.
And in this case, we're realizing that society uses age as a proxy, a really lazy shortcut for two other much more important things: innocence and maturity.
And because we use that shortcut, we end up in, well, a bit of a mess.
A huge mess. And it's not just some philosophical mess, it's an ethical one. We end up treating people in ways that just don't match their reality.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to try and dismantle that shortcut. We have some incredible source material that argues we need to unpack age, innocence, and maturity as three completely distinct things. Right, because the core premise here is that they are not synonyms. They don't even necessarily move in the same direction.
Which is a bit of a radical thought for our systems, isn't it? Our laws, our schools, our workplaces. They all run on the assumption that these three things are bundled together in a neat little package.
Well, it's administrative convenience, isn't it? Age is the only one of those three that's visible. I can ask for your ID. I can check a box.
You can't exactly card someone for their emotional maturity.
Not at all.
You can't. Innocence and maturity are what the source calls invisible capacities. You can't see them from across the room. You have to actually interact with someone.
But we're busy, we're tired, and let's be honest, we're a little lazy. So we just look at the birth date and make this massive assumption about who that person is.
And that assumption is dangerous.
This really is. So let's act as the guide here and strip these terms down. We have
Yeah.
three concepts: age, innocence, and maturity. Let's separate them. Starting with the easiest one, age.
The measurable one.
The only measurable one. According to our source, age is purely chronological. It just measures time lived. Full stop.
And I think we need to really sit with that full stop because we want it to mean more. We really do. But the source is adamant. Age is neutral.
It's just a counter.
It's just a counter of how many times you've orbited the sun. It says nothing about your understanding, your responsibility, your ability to regulate your emotions. Nothing.
Which seems so obvious when you say it, but we attach so much baggage to that number. We treat 18 or 21 or 65 as if they're these magical transformation points.
Ding. You are now responsible.
Exactly. We treat the calendar like it's a curriculum. But just because you attended the class of life for 40 years doesn't mean you were paying attention.
Or that you learned anything.
Okay, so if age is just time, let's move to innocence. Now, this one surprised me a little. We usually think of innocence as, purity.
Morality, being like an angel.
Right. But the source defines innocence as being contextual.
Contextual is the key word. It changes the whole framework. In this view, innocence isn't about being good. It's about a specific structural position.
Which is what?
Limited exposure, limited power, and a limited capacity to understand consequences.
So it's about vulnerability.
Precisely. It's about a lack of data. If you haven't been exposed to the world's complexity, you are, by definition, innocent of it.
And that means you need protection.
Yes. Not because you're morally superior, but because you're operating with an incomplete map of the world.
That's such a crucial distinction.
Oh.
It takes all the moral judgment out of it. You aren't better for being innocent. You're just less exposed.
You don't know the rules of the game yet. And because you don't know the rules or the dangers, you cannot consent to the game. That's why innocence demands protection.
Okay, so age is chronological. Innocence is contextual. Now for the big one, maturity. The source defines maturity as relational.
Relational. I love that word for it.
Me too. It defines it as the ability to integrate experience. So it's not just having the experience, that's just age, but actually doing something with it.
And this is where the source gets really granular and honestly a little convicting. Because integrating experience is doing a lot of heavy lifting as a phrase.
It really is. It's easy to say I'm mature.
It's very hard to prove it. The source breaks it down into 5 specific criteria, and I think we should walk through them.
Let's do it. What's number 1?
Okay, first one, the capacity to regulate emotion.
Let's pause there because people misunderstand this. Regulation doesn't mean suppression.
No, not at all. It doesn't mean being a robot or never feeling angry. It means having a feeling, maybe a big, scary, validly angry feeling, and not letting it drive the bus.
It's the gap between I feel angry and I'm going to throw this chair through the window.
Exactly. A mature person feels the anger but chooses the action. An immature person is the anger.
That is a huge difference. Okay, what's next?
Number 2 is to take responsibility. And number 3, which is very closely related, is to repair harm.
Repair harm. Wow, that feels like such a high bar. I feel like this is where the rubber really meets the road.
It is. A lot of people think maturity is just saying, I'm sorry to get out of trouble.
Right, the classic sorry you feel that way, non-apology.
Exactly. But repair is different. Repair is about restoring the relational fabric you tore. It requires acknowledging the impact of your actions, not just your intent.
So you could be 50 years old, pay your taxes, have a great job, and still have zero capacity to actually fix what you broke.
You just want to move on. That's not maturity, that's avoidance.
Wow. Okay. Moving on isn't fixing. Let's go on a sticky note. What's number 4?
Tolerate complexity.
This feels like a big one for today's world.
It's huge. Can you hold 2 opposing truths in your head at the same time? Can you understand that someone can be a good father and a bad employee?
Versus needing everything to be black and white. Good guys and bad guys.
Right. The source argues that the desperate need for that binary simplicity, for everything to be clearly good or clearly bad, is actually a sign of immaturity. It's a refusal to engage with reality as it is.
Okay, and the last one, number 5.
Act from values rather than impulse.
Which is really the summary of the whole list, isn't it?
It is. Can you override your immediate desire for comfort or revenge or just being right to do the thing that aligns with your deeper values? That is the definition of being a grown-up.
So when you look at that whole list, regulate emotion, repair harm, tolerate complexity, it becomes immediately obvious why age is such a terrible proxy for this.
Oh, absolutely. It falls apart instantly. You can find a 60-year-old CEO who fails every single one of those criteria.
They might react impulsively, refuse to apologize, demand simple answers.
And act entirely on their ego. By this definition, they are chronologically old, but they are relationally and ethically an infant.
And conversely, you could find a much younger person who, maybe out of necessity, has learned to do all those things incredibly well.
Precisely. These 3 things, age, innocence, maturity, they just do not move in lockstep.
But our brains are just desperate to believe that they do. Why? Is it just laziness?
I think it's cognitive load. We're tired. Administrative convenience is a real force. Assessing someone's capacity to repair harm takes time. It takes relationship.
You have to watch them over weeks or months.
Yeah. But checking a birth certificate, that takes 1 second. It's the path of least resistance.
It is.
But the source has this great line that really stuck with me. Proxies fail. When you use a proxy, you stop looking at the person in front of you.
And you start looking at the category they fit into.
Yeah.
And that leads to these false assumptions. Younger equals innocent, older equals mature.
And there's another layer to this confusion, which I found really interesting. It's not just about the number, it's about the aesthetic. It's about how things look.
The aesthetic projection.
Huh.
This is where we get into our own biases about what a grown-up looks like.
Exactly, versus what a child looks like.
Let's talk about softness. The source points out that we often confuse softness, playfulness, or emotional openness with innocence.
Yes. Think about it. If you meet someone who's kind of giggly, wears bright colors, has a soft voice, your brain immediately codes them as innocent.
You think, oh, they're vulnerable, they need protection.
They probably don't understand the hard realities of the world, even if that person is 45 and manages a hedge fund.
Right. You're reacting to their vibe, not their capacity.
Exactly. You're confusing their personality style with their structural position. And we do the same thing on the flip side with maturity.
We confuse seriousness, rigidity, or restraint with being mature.
The strong silent type fallacy. The man in the gray suit. If someone is stern, doesn't show emotion, speaks in a flat voice, we assume, wow, very mature.
Very responsible.
But are they? Not necessarily. The source argues that rigidity isn't maturity. Rigidity can actually be a sign of emotional immaturity and inability to handle messy feelings.
So you just shut them down.
You're not regulating the emotion, you're strangling it. But to the outside world, it looks like composure.
So we judge the book by its font choice. We look at surface traits and mistake them for deep ethical architecture.
That's a great way to put it. An adult can be soft and playful without being innocent.
Absolutely. You can love cartoons, cry at commercials, but also know exactly how the world works. You have power. You understand consequences.
You are not innocent in that contextual sense. You don't need the same protection as a child. But because of your aesthetic, people might infantilize you.
Or the reverse. And this one feels so much heavier. A young person can lack innocence without being mature.
This is the tragic one. This is where the system really fails. Think about a child who has been through significant trauma or poverty or war.
They've lost their innocence in the sense that they've been exposed to the harsh realities of the world.
Right. They know consequences. They aren't sheltered. They might look hardened.
They might talk tough, have that 1,000-yard stare.
And because they lack that aesthetic of innocence, that softness society looks at them and says, well, they're basically adults. They know what they're doing.
But knowing what you're doing isn't the same as having the capacity to regulate it.
Exactly. Just because they've lost innocence doesn't mean they've gained maturity. Maturity is the integration of experience, not just the exposure to it.
They still have a developing brain.
Yeah.
They still lack that relational capacity.
But we see that lack of innocence, and we treat them with adult severity. We criminalize them. We strip them of the protection they're absolutely entitled to. We mistake trauma for maturity.
It's a massive ethical failure. And it comes from our own projections. The source mentions adults projecting nostalgia onto youth.
Oh, I'm so guilty of this. Look at the children, so pure, so simple.
Make me feel young again.
Right. We turn innocence into an image, a fantasy. But innocence isn't an image, it's an ethical condition of vulnerability. When we project nostalgia, we stop seeing the actual child and their actual messy needs.
And the other projection.
Projecting authority onto age. We turn maturity into status. We just assume that because someone is older or in a position of power, they must be mature.
We confuse being in charge with being accountable.
And then when they throw a tantrum, we're shocked. But we shouldn't be. Getting a promotion doesn't magically increase your emotional capacity. Age and status are not maturity.
So let's land this on the practical side. The so what? What are the specific harms when these distinctions collapse?
When we blur these lines, the system fails its primary job, to protect the vulnerable and hold the capable accountable.
Okay, let's look at the failures. The source says adults are denied softness because they are assumed to have outgrown it.
This is the sadness of adulthood in our culture. If you show vulnerability or playfulness, people think you're regressing, that you're acting like a child.
So we put on this armor of rigidity to prove we're mature.
We stifle ourselves to fit the proxy of age. But true maturity, remember, tolerating complexity, should include the capacity to be playful and soft while being responsible.
And then there's the most dangerous one. Harmful behavior is excused simply because of someone's age.
Boys will be boys. Oh, he's from a different generation. She's just young and didn't know better, even when she's 25.
Right. When we use age as an excuse, we bypass the actual issue of harm.
Exactly. If an adult acts impulsively and hurts someone, their age shouldn't be a shield. If they lack the maturity to repair that harm, that's the problem. We need to name it for what it is.
So how do we fix this? How do we restore ethics through clarity?
We need to stop asking age to do all the work. It's too heavy a lift for a simple number. The source offers a really helpful framework here with 3 specific ethical domains.
Okay, let's list them. First, innocence.
Innocence is about the capacity for consent and protection. If someone has limited exposure or understanding, our primary ethical duty to them is protection, period.
Second, maturity.
Maturity is about the capacity for responsibility and repair. Can you own your actions? Can you fix what you broke? If yes, you are mature. If no, you aren't, no matter how old you are.
And finally, age.
Age is just a rough indicator, a guide. It helps us make broad guesses. Okay, this person is 12, they probably need protection, but it should never be the final judge.
This shift, it feels like it changes how we structure safety.
It does. When these are distinguished correctly, systems become safer and more humane. We stop punishing people for things they can't control, and we stop excusing people who should be held accountable.
That phrase, protection, autonomy, and accountability, belong to different dimensions. We try to jam them all into the age bucket, but they just don't fit.
They don't fit. And when we force them, we get injustice. We get children in handcuffs because they didn't act innocent. And we get childish leaders with nuclear codes because they looked the part.
When you put it that way, the stakes feel incredibly high.
They are. This isn't just semantics. It's about discernment. It's about actually seeing the human being in front of you.
It's about realizing that grown up is a behavior, not a biological inevitability.
Precisely. It is a skill set. It must be learned and practiced. You don't just arrive there.
So for you listening, this is really an invitation to look closer. We've been using a visible number age to measure these invisible capacities, and as we've learned, proxies fail.
They fail because they're lazy. And ethics requires effort. It requires attention.
It does. It requires us to look past the gray hair or the baby face. It requires us to stop projecting our own nostalgia or our own deference to authority onto strangers. I want to leave you with a challenge, something to take with you. It's a bit of a diagnostic tool from what we've talked about today.
I love a good diagnostic tool.
Next time you find yourself judging a situation or a person, maybe a coworker, your child, a politician, just pause for a second. Ask yourself, what am I reacting to?
Am I reacting to their chronology, just how long they've been on the planet?
Am I reacting to their aesthetics, how serious or playful or innocent they look?
Or, and this is the hard one,
Or are you reacting to their actual relational capacity? Are you looking at their ability to repair harm, to regulate emotion, and to tolerate complexity?
because true discernment requires looking past the number.
And honestly, looking past the number might just be the most mature thing you can do.
I see what you did there.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.